Protests in the streets, flag burning, political discord. How much can you or can't you say legally when it comes to speaking out? It's a timely topic for today's Legal Brief segment with attorney Whitney Hughes of the Allegheny County Bar Association's Lawyer Referral Service. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we saw our own protests here within the last couple of weeks. So this is really timely, specifically for our area, and we've seen over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about freedom of speech and what is guaranteed under the Constitution. What is it?
Well, freedom of speech is covered by the First Amendment, which covers a variety of things. Freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, freedom of speech as well. Basically, what the amendment says is that Congress can enact no law abridging someone's freedom of speech. So there can't be any governmental action, governmental law, which cuts off somebody's ability to express themselves.
But we've seen a lot of stuff, and I think that with social media, things can be shared very easily.
Absolutely.
So we've seen some pretty ugly things said and done to one another. Are there limits?
There are limits, but only within certain circumstances. Okay. So there are typically 5 big things that the government is able to enact a law addressing. So the first one would be fighting words, something that you say that you know is going to provoke somebody else to fight you, to get a reaction from them. So fighting words. Speech that is intended to incite a riot or any other kind of lawlessness. So if you go in and you say, if you're at a rally and you incite a bunch of people to take action and, stab the person next to you or something like that, clearly that's going to cross that line.
Right.
Obscenity. Obscenity is a little tricky, but basically it's something that is of a prurient nature that is offensive to most people and has no artistic value.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of subjective. Words that are defamatory. So if you say something that you know is untrue about somebody else, specifically to try to damage their reputation or their ability to earn a living, that kind of thing. And then finally, words that are fraudulent speech, or that is intended to basically constitute a crime. Okay. So those things cross that line.
But it even seems with some of those things that
there's a gray area.
Right.
There definitely is.
So what about protesting and marching and chanting in the streets? Does that fall into any of those categories there?
I mean, typically, again, the First Amendment makes sure that your ability to express yourself isn't restricted.
Okay.
Again, that being said, there are times when governments can restrict those, but they're very limited. It's usually what's called a time, place, and manner restriction. So it has to be content neutral, so you cannot restrict the content of what somebody is saying. It has to be narrowly drawn, so very, very limited. It has to serve some type of legitimate government interest. And then finally, you have to have some other alternative for that person to express themselves. So a good example of that is restricting the volume and the noise level of somebody who's speaking at a particular rally at night or at a certain time during the day. It doesn't address the content. Clearly, the government has an interest in, keeping the peace, and they do have other ways to express themselves. So those are time, place, and manner restrictions that would apply.
Okay, I see. Burning a flag, we've seen this take place before. Shunning the national anthem, things like those. Those aren't necessarily speaking, but how are those things protected?
Because it's expression. Okay. That's what it is. The First Amendment protects your ability to express yourself, whether it is burning a flag or taking a knee or anything like that. So it's not just speech, it's anything that you are doing to express whatever you're trying to convey.
But that still falls under those areas where you need to be. Okay.
It does.
Can someone be fired by their employer because of things that they're said? So maybe it's protected under freedom of speech, but can you still be fired?
They can, because the freedom of speech restriction basically says that a government can't enact any law abridging your freedom of speech. If I say something that my employer does not like, that's a private company, it's a private individual, so they are well within their rights to restrict your ability to express yourself, especially if you are on, in a company location, on company time. That happens all the time. There are some states which protect an employee's ability to express themselves outside of the working environment and say that, if I say something on the weekend or if I'm engaged in a protest and my employer doesn't like it, they can't fire me. Pennsylvania is not one of those states. So if my employer sees something that I'm doing on the weekend that they don't like, they can terminate me for that.
I think the important thing is you may be protected under freedom of speech, but not necessarily out of the ballpark of consequences.
Absolutely, yeah, there are consequences to your action.
Okay, and I think with social media too, we're seeing a lot more of this, especially people getting fired or disciplined by their employers.
You are, because it used to be that you would just say something and it was restricted to the people around you that saw it and that heard it. Now it's out there like that.
Seen a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time here with us.
Thanks.
Attorney Whitney Hughes with the Allegheny County Bar Association's Lawyer Referral Service. Thank you as always for coming on our show. And if you have any questions regarding any of these issues or to find an attorney, you can contact the Allegheny County Bar Association yourself. Here's the number on your screen there. It's 412-261-5555 or online at getapittsburghlawyer.com.